All right, time for a game. Let's see what kind of games we can get today. E4, E5. We know that. We don't have to follow these openings, right? We don't have to. Speak of the devil, we don't have to follow the openings. We just, I'm going to go ahead and change up my move order to put an attack here. I have no idea what's happening at this point in time. I'm going to continue to make standard opening moves. See what kind of shenanigans we can end up in. I'm going to castle here. But just making standard principle moves. I don't know what my opponent's up to, but that's okay. I don't have to know what they're up to. That seems like such an awkward pawn to push. I'm assuming he's going to push this pawn here. So let us go ahead and prepare a hidey hole. Because if push, I run away, my opponent's making a lot of pawn moves that are, and I don't know what his intentions are. His or her. Their intentions. I don't know. All right. Okay, so more pawn moves by my opponent. That is okay. My opponent can continue to do so. Now, my light square bishop would normally go along this diagonal, but I'm concerned that that might be a little bit locked up. I am going to go ahead and continue. I'll probably park my light square bishop either on e6 or d7. All right, let's see. Where does the knight want to go from this perspective? Let me think for a quick moment. Where does the knight want to go? I kind of want to put it over here on the edge, but I can't because that square is covered. So it's got to come back here. But man, I am really, you know what? I'm really bummed about that. If he pushes down once more, I don't really have anything to take with it. So my candidates are e8 or d7, and I'm thinking e8 right now. That way I can still get my light square bishop up and out somehow. I don't know. Not 100% certain. If he pushes down once more, we're just going to go ahead and blockade a little bit. Now if he pushes down, I could pick up here. No, I can't. My opponent's being really aggressive with his pawns. And you know what? I had concerns, but I'm going to go ahead and take on this one. My opponent can take back. That's fine. Now, with this move I'm doing is I am preventing this. I've got a little bit more defense along this this square here. We were prepared for this. We knew where this bishop was going to go. My opponent has an alignment issue that I really would like to exploit. I don't know how I'm going to exploit that, but I would like to. I think my bishop has got to probably... Where can this knight go? I think I could still go like this. If he pushes down, my knight can go here. We can make this exchange. Trade my knight for his bishop. Now, what do we got? So he can still push past. Yeah, that's fine. But I just wanted them to get this alignment issue kind of in reach. Now, where does my light square bishop want to go? I have some squares available now. I'm kind of thinking along the F6 or F5 square. That way it does get one, well, I guess it does give me a little bit more control up here. I don't know. I don't know where this guy belongs, to be honest with you. I would like to see if I can get another... Kind of gummed up here, aren't I? My opponent's really taking control with his pawns. My pieces are all developed, but I'm kind of gummed up, and there's got to be some way for me to exploit this, but I just don't know how. I could push my F pawn, but that gives him this. And I don't really have a good response to that. If I push my H pawn to break here, am I weakening my whole structure? I don't know. This doesn't seem like the world's greatest move order here. I wish I were better at chess. I wish I knew some of these how to defend against, how to take advantage against my opponent's pawn storm here. He opens up this rook. All right. So this gives us, now we're pinning this knight. I could push past with my h-pawn to prop up my bishop, which I feel pretty good about. Now I've got some protection here. So that makes me feel a little bit better. I think my knight is now going to start jumping back into the game. So I have done a little bit of damage, I guess you could say, to my pawn structure, but it's still connected. They're still strong. My opponent still keeps sticking his queen right back there. This bishop is undefended. I still can't get at it. All right, I'm going to reroute my knight. So now this knight is in a better position, I feel. Is it time to make some trades? Take? No, because he can take back with that knight. Golly, I've wasted a lot of time trying to figure this out, haven't I? We do have to kind of open up some lines here, don't we? So I think it's time to start making some trades. I'm hoping my opponent will take with the queen. Maybe I can reroute my bishop. And while you guys are watching this, feel free at any time to kind of pause it and think about how you would handle the situation. My opponent obviously has a plan. I feel like I should be better, but I can't put my finger on how or why. Maybe it's time for me to open up my rook. Yeah, that's what I didn't want to see. Okay, so now I have an option. I'm trying to remove defenders from this pawn so that I can get some attackers on it. And one way to do that would be for me to take here. It doesn't do anything. No. I'm sorry, for me to push, which almost forces this trade. So let's do that. So force this trade. Remove a defender. Get my bishop down here so that I can start putting some pressure along this pawn. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like there's something that should have happened that I missed. Maybe I'm focusing too much on this alignment. Maybe I'm focusing too much on this center pawn. But I feel like there should be something along those lines. My opponent is spending time as well, so we're both spending time. So I'm not too far behind on the clock yet. I guess actually at this point I could have routed my knight up to eliminate the defender that way. I've got a check I can throw in here. I don't know that that's going to get me anything. There's a weak pawn here that maybe I could exploit somehow. Maybe bring my rook over. All right, so now we're removing defenders one at a time from this square. That knight is pinned for the time being. If I can throw a rook up here, my opponent takes, I get a passed pawn. If my opponent doesn't take, I've got pressure on this bishop. So maybe my incremental positional advantage has kind of helped me out. I don't know. I'm going to definitely push this pawn here to solidify this structure. But a bishop in front of a pawn is really strong. The pawn protects the bishop protects the pawn. So now all I have to do is that. And we have won the queen. I think. All right, it is protected. So this is why this alignment issue can be a concern. And I'm feeling like that me going after it so hard, maybe it hurt me, maybe it helped me, I don't know. So he takes, I take with check. He has to take back. And then I get a rook. So now I'm up serious material. I have a passed pawn. My opponent has connected pawns over here that I'd like to kind of start working on eliminating. I've got a pretty decent structure here. I can pick up this pawn and weaken my opponent's pawn. I could pick up this pawn in a minute. Oops, cancel that. What? Yeah, so he's putting pressure here. That's fine. So I can take this. Now this pawn is weak. I'm up in material, so I'm trying to look for trades if I can. We can get this knight out. All right, so he has dropped that pawn as well, but he is looking for, he does trying to get some things happening here. So let's just, I don't have back rank issues. Can I just take? Can I just take? What's wrong with just taking? Are we missing anything? No, just take, Joe. And we'll swing over here and pick up this pawn with check. Now my opponent is looking to pick up over here. I do have to keep an eye on these two passed pawns, but my opponent is running into some serious issues pretty quickly. I can take for free, because that is not defended. And that's, okay, that's checkmate. So that happened. Well, alrighty, my friend. That was an interesting game. I am, I'm going to take a look at it. So, maybe. I'm just saying very maybe here, okay? Before I analyze this game, I'm just saying very maybe. It is entirely possible that this game developed the way it did because I stuck to the principles, and the principles of these minuscule advantages that I accrue by sticking to the principles. It's possible that has led to the end of that mid game and the transition to the end game completely shifting in my favor. So it's possible that was the reason. Now, I'd like to believe that that's the reason because that means that all the work I've done trying to learn the principles of the game actually has paid off. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm the greatest chess player in the world and please do everything that I do. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that the basic principles that we followed, the experts gave us those principles. I didn't make them up. The experts gave us those principles. I just consolidated them. And there's tons of books out there on the opening principles and things like that. And I am not going to sit here and take credit for discovering them or figuring them out or anything like that. I literally just looked at like 3 different Google sites and consolidated all of their stuff into one kind of place. And I'm sure I'm not the first to do that. I did it in my own voice instead of somebody else. But the point I'm trying to make is it's possible that by sticking to those principles, we know that we can play good chess just by following the principles. We don't have to know openings, we don't have to know anything, we just follow along the basic principles. I didn't know the opening my opponent was playing. They had some kind of plan, but that plan was opposite of what some of the opening principles dictate, and it looks like in this case it has 100% paid off. So let's take a quick look at what the analysis says. And we'll kind of keep an eye on this number as we go through. So E4, E5 opening, pretty standard. Yeah, this does not even have a name. It's just part of the King's Pawn group. And you'll notice there are, so when I made my E5 pawn move, there are 25 million games that played E5. When my opponent played H3, yeah, we're down to less than 40,000, that's for sure. looks like less than 20,000, probably less than 12,000 games. So this is a novelty by my opponent, and possibly not a great move sequence. So we'll just watch this number. Again, the more negative it goes, the more in favor of black it goes. And we'll just let it tick up and just tick around and see, you know. I'm not going to do much analysis on this particular board because you guys heard my thoughts as I went along. But you can see we'll just watch and see where I made my blunders, and we'll take a look at my blunders. But I'm going slowly to let the engine calculate so that we don't get too like bad numbers. We don't want bad data, right? We want good data. Excuse me. But I just stuck to the principles, right? I stuck to, you know, don't make too many pawn moves if I don't have to. And my opponent made a lot of pawn moves. Yeah, instead of castling, it wanted me to make to really control the center with my pawns, which probably I could have done. Really control the center. I mean, I had both of them defended. And you can see the engine over here calculating 860,000 nodes, 860,000 positions per second, a node being one move, right? So this is calculating 860,000 a second, or almost a million a second, to give us. Let me turn this thing off because it's not really helping. So my opponent is really, really strongly pushing these pawns, and you heard me talking during the game at how nervous, like I didn't know how to punch through because, you know, pawns did have some strong, okay, so the engine says that was a bad move. Yeah, this knight on top of the king was a really good move that I wish I had found earlier. That ended up helping me really protect some of these squares. Yeah, okay, so I gave back some of my advantage right there. Yeah, again, this alignment issue was one of the things that I really wanted to focus on. The king sitting in front, the queen sitting in front of the king. Guys, if you're playing your games, really watch for this. This queen could have been anywhere else other than on top of his king. Anywhere else, and this game would have been hugely different. I mean, the queen could have sat on either one of these squares and still gotten his point across. But right in front of his king, or if you want the queen on this square, castle. My God, just castle any which way. And get the king, you know, move the king. Manually move the king if you have to, but don't let the queen sit in front of the king. Because as soon as somebody can pin you, man, heck, if I could have pinned it with a bishop, I would have, right? Like, if I could have gotten my bishop over there to pin that queen, or, you know, if it was like this, you know what I'm saying? But anything to pin that queen to the king means I win the queen in the exchange. So yeah, you can see these numbers are not flipping super crazy one way or the other. And the level of chess that I play, a 1 or 2 point advantage is not a huge advantage. So I felt like I had an advantage, but I couldn't see it. And part of it was because that it was a small advantage, but it is starting to tick up. Yeah. It ticks back down there, I guess. So I was debating on making this sacrifice, like trying to find a way to sacrifice some material to maybe eliminate, you know, he's got a strong pawn chain here, and if I could have found a way to eliminate these guys or get these guys to drive off, and that pawn just becomes a weakness, like I could have sacrificed some material to be able to open up this pin, because I'm winning essentially, you know, 4 points of material if I just trade a rook. So that was something I was looking at, is are there sacrifices that I can make in order to win that queen? Yeah, I'm giving back some material. I mean, some advantage by not... I just couldn't find out how to take advantage. I said it many times. I felt like there was something. I just couldn't figure it out. I'm going to go back after the fact and try to look at where maybe I could have taken advantage of some of this. But right now I'm just kind of clicking through slowly to see the engine. Okay, and here was a mistake. Why was that a mistake? Because he takes, right, and the knight is trapped. He takes, the knight goes somewhere. Interesting. Let me explore this real quick. He takes, the knight goes somewhere. And then what? This knight is still... Like, why does that give my opponent back an advantage? I don't know. I guess because that square is covered? I don't know. Yeah, so I've strengthened my center, and I've strengthened that guy. And he puts it right back. Why? Why would you do that? Why would you... I don't know. Moved his queen out of this pin, and then brought it right back. That was just absolutely bonkers to me. Why would you move it back? So once, what is the engine telling me to do? And I gave back some material. Yeah, when he took back with the knight, it's frustrating because I was hoping to get rid of that knight, because that knight defends both of these two important pawns for him. I could have achieved the same thing by just pushing the pawn all the way up. Yep. A better move is push straight all the way ahead, because then if he takes, I've effectively eliminated one. Oops, come on, circles. I've effectively eliminated one of the defenders of that pawn, which is what I've been trying to do this whole game. So yeah, oops, wrong clicky. There we go. So yeah, c6 should have been c5. Totally see that. Because I ended up pushing c5 anyway, so I wasted a tempo. And I gave him an opportunity to take anyway, so he could have had a chance to take en passant if he wanted. So I should have just pushed c5. Okay. And now my opponent wasted another tempo by going back, which, I mean, I guess is fine, you know, in the grand scheme of things, because I'm wasting tempo too, but... Alright, so it's saying... Take the pawn or get this knight over here, and I never got the knight involved this way like I should have. But you can see the advantage is now really cranking up, and this is where things, I feel like the game really turned in my favor. Man, it really wants me to get this knight involved, doesn't it? Oh, because this is undefended. Right, Joe. Right. Yep, and then we pinned the queen. I mean, at this point in time, look at the advantage. So you could see how the advantage is just kind of ticked up, even though like I was not ahead in material. I wish it would show me the material advantage. Before we do this, let's go here. So back here on this move here. So let's see, 2 knights and a bishop. 2 bishops and a knight. Pawn, pawn. So we are dead even in material at this point in time in the game. 100% dead even in material. I'm still even in material, but look at the advantage clicking up. We've exchanged pawns. We're still even in material. Still even in material. Still even in material, but look at the advantage just climbing up. Now I'm up a pawn. And you can just see the advantage is just climbing and climbing and climbing. So even right to here, where the engine says I have an advantage of almost 12 points, 10 points, somewhere between 10 and 12 points, we're technically even in material, but I think, and I would like to chalk it up to the fact that we followed the principles, right? We followed the basic principles of chess. We have our pieces working for us, right? My opponent has pieces that are just sitting back here not doing anything. This queen has done nothing but sit here this whole game, which, I mean, that's fine. My queen has been sitting here the whole game too, but I guess my point is I have made a lot of moves with my pieces to get my pieces working for me. My opponent has made a lot of moves with his pawns, and now he's a little bit disconnected. And so at the end of the day, I have connected. I have things that are working in tandem, in conjunction. Yes, okay, I've got a couple scattered pawns out here, but my pawns have, most of my pawns are doing work. My pieces are doing work. I've got an almost 12-point advantage, and the material on the board is even. So it has to be simply because that we followed the basic principles. And then, yeah, from here. Yeah, see, I think a move like this or this to defend this bishop and at the same time remove that pin could have been huge. Could have been huge. I mean, granted, I still have a check, but my opponent can just walk away or block. And at this point now I've got a queen. And it kind of falls apart for my opponent from here on out, doesn't it? Yeah, get my queen into the game, take control of the open file. Yeah, so I was looking at this. Oops, I was looking at this knight move with check. I just didn't see any follow-up immediately. Getting my queen involved would help me with follow-up, I think. Because then I can... Man, I'm not there, but... Oops, excuse me. Yeah, I don't know what this bishop move was for. Well, I guess the engine says it was a good move. Just get it back involved in the game, I guess. Take down my passed pawn. Yep, and then, unfortunately, I have my queen backed up. Rooks and bishops are long-range pieces. So anytime that your rooks and bishops can attack long range, they are working for you because they're covering all their squares. Knights and queens are melee pieces. They want to be up and close in the action. So your knight has to get into the action, get up close and personal. The queen wants to be up close and personal because when she does that, my opponent's king has 0 squares it can go to. So that's all she wrote. Anyway, thanks, guys. This was a 17-minute game and a almost 17-minute review, and the review was mostly just watching the engine slowly tick up into my favor, watching the advantage slowly build in my favor. The minor positional advantages until things come to a head, and then all of a sudden the minor positional advantages cash in, right? We cash in those positional advantages. Oh, I forgot. I didn't even see this. Yeah. I wouldn't even paid attention. I wouldn't even, if my opponent had left this rook there, I wouldn't have taken it. Anyway, minor positional advantages by following the principles of openings, and then we banked all that advantage, and then we cashed it in for a win. So, all right, that was a fun one. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you later. Bye.